The Atlanta Braves open up a 6-2 lead over the Boston Red Sox just to get walked off 7-6. And the worst part, we saw it all coming. Let's talk about it.
This is the Braves Postcast, your instant game reaction for the Atlanta Braves. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into the Braves Postcast, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta, where we cover your Atlanta sports teams each and every day. I'm your host, Lindsay Crosby, author of the Braves Today newsletter over at bravestoday.com. You can follow me on social media at Crosby Baseball. He's Jake Mastroianni, host of Locked On Braves, at Shortstop Ball on X to get Jake and all his thoughts. And Jake, we've got a lot of thoughts about this one. The Atlanta Braves get walked off by the Boston Red Sox 7-6. In a game that was not only very winnable, but you were kind of cruising. You were up 6-2 when you went to the bullpen, and a series of questionable decisions about which pitchers to use in what order ends up resulting in the loss after they give up 4 runs. I want to get to, eventually we're going to talk about the offense. We're going to talk about the good night for the offense. We're going to talk about Grant Holmes. But let's go ahead and fast forward here to the 7th inning. Okay, Grant Holmes does his 6 innings. Pitches well, 3 hits, 2 runs, 4 walks, 5 strikeouts. I will point out he does give up plenty of hard hit balls. I want to say he had like 6 or 7, and only one of them was actually dropped for a hit. He got some luck there, but he pitched well enough to win. You're up 6-2. And from that point, the Braves go to Aaron Bummer. He gets 1 out, gives up 2 hits. Enyel De Los Santos comes in to replace him. He gives up a hit, but 2 runs score. And then you go to Rafael Montero for the 8th inning. And I'm trying to figure out, I understand Raisel Iglesias pitched 2 straight days. So you want to save Daisel Hernandez for the 9th for a save. But why Rafael Montero in the 8th? I can't think of a reason. And I'm hoping you can think of a reason why you would do that.
Still thinking. I don't know. I do not know. He is probably your worst arm in the bullpen. We've talked about it for a while now. I think he's the guy on the chopping block whenever Kimbrel comes up or anybody else. I think he is your worst arm in the bullpen. And yet you go to him in a high leverage situation on the road, and they clobbered him. I mean, he was not fooling anybody out there. It is just an unbelievable decision by Brian Snitker, but it's also the 2nd time he's done it this week. Yeah. And I get it. I understand you're in a very long stretch of games here. You've had a lot of tight games. You've had to use some of your best relievers, but Montero, like at this point, I'd have been okay going to Scott Blewett over Rafael Montero. But even then, Pierce Johnson came into the game in this inning. Unless you were just trying to save Pierce Johnson for the 9th inning and you wanted to give Daysbel another day, why wasn't Pierce Johnson starting that inning? It makes absolutely 0 sense. And like I said, it's the 2nd time this week. And you had the 4-run lead. I'm okay with you going to Aaron Bummer and trying to get an inning there with some of your bottom guys in the bullpen. But it's the same thing as Wednesday. Once that game becomes close, then you have to go to your high leverage arms. And instead you go to your worst arm in the bullpen. It makes absolutely 0 sense why you would do that, especially if you were going to bring in Pierce Johnson anyway. And like I said, unless you were trying to save him for the 9th, why was he not starting that inning? It's frustrating because it's the 2nd time it's happened this week in games that you just let get away. You had a chance to get a big road series win. You've struggled on the road mightily. This felt like an easy game. We were cruising, and then next thing you know, you're losing.
Good rhyme. I know you didn't mean to do it, but that was bars from Jake Mastroianni. It feels like that they have this idea that the groupings you have to follow. Pierce Johnson and Dylan Lee together. They pitched Tuesday and Thursday both. Aaron Bummer, Enyel De Los Santos, Rafael Montero. They pitched Wednesday. All 3 of them pitched in Wednesday's game. They all kind of got into today's game. Scott Blewett hasn't pitched in a week. So it can't be a workload thing. I don't know what it is. It feels like the way that he pitched in the extra innings games in Pittsburgh, it feels like he would have been a better option there. Again, somebody mentioned, I think I saw it here in the chat on YouTube. Somebody mentioned, is this kind of their way of giving Montero a chance to either sink or swim before they make the Kimbrel move next week? Again, we don't know when the Kimbrel move is going to be. I'm assuming it's going to be after this. I'd be fine if it was tonight. Yeah. Leave Montero on the tarmac when you fly to Washington, whatever you want to do. But it does feel like this was entirely a winnable game, and it has to go back on the manager here. Yes, the bullpen arms gave up runs. They gave up hits. To your point, Montero, the 3 batted balls that he gave up, 102, 102.6, 108.8. Like you said, not fooling anybody. They had to go to Pierce Johnson anyway. They left Pierce Johnson out there for the 9th when he gave up the game-winning homer. It should have never gotten to that point. It really should never have gotten to that point. I'd have been fine with Scott Blewett over
anybody.
Yeah, anybody. Dylan Lee, give me Dylan Lee, give me Pierce Johnson, give me anybody over going with Montero, but they absolutely do it. That's the worst part. Like I said, is we all saw this coming. I put it on social media as soon as I heard on the radio call that Montero was warming up. And I'm like, why are you warming up Montero when you have Dylan Lee or Blewett and Johnson and everybody else? Like that's the worst part. We all saw this coming except for the manager.
Yeah, you rewind social media at about that time where everybody saw Montero coming in. I know I sent out a post. I put out the Luke Skywalker. I got a bad feeling about this when Montero came in. Everybody on social media was knowing this was going to end bad. Mm-hmm. And you may have said this. Everybody saw what was coming except for the managers, the coaches in that dugout. Yeah. Like everybody knew what was going to happen, and it absolutely did happen. It's unfathomable that you let it happen for a second time this week. Like I said, I get it. You're in a long stretch. You're trying to steal some innings, but once it becomes a 2-run game, you have to go to your guys that you trust. You got to go to Daysville, to Dylan Lee, Pierce Johnson to begin the inning, and Ricel. I mean, those are your 4 guys. They blow it for you. Okay, those are the 4 best that you have, but you got to let it be those guys.
Yeah. I mean, I know Daysville threw 23 pitches yesterday, but bring him back for the 9th if you have to. PJ in the 8th, whatever. You got to do something. You have to be better. You've struggled so much just to get back to 500 and over 500. You have to be better.
And to be fair, this goes back to the offseason. They did not do enough for this bullpen,
correct,
to give them enough reliable arms after Joe Jimenez went down. They didn't do anything really to help the bullpen except get a bunch of guys that they were hoping could figure some things out. So again, part of this blame goes on the front office too, but also a lot of it goes on Brian Snitker and some bullpen decisions.
Yeah, like you had pieces in the bullpen that could have handled it tonight. The longer term tier is you weren't aggressive enough in the offseason. It's at bringing in a high leverage arm. But in the short term, you had the pieces to win this game and frankly chose not to do it. You chose not to use the right guys to win the game. So there you go. All right, in just a minute, when we come back, we're going to talk about Grant Holmes. We're going to talk about the offense. We'll do all of that next right here on the Braves Postcast. Have you ever decided at the last minute to head to a ball game with friends or family? Maybe it's game day and you just suddenly realize you want to be in the stands. Maybe there's a great bobblehead giveaway and you want to get that free item. That's exactly where Game Time comes in. It's the easiest way to grab last minute tickets without the stress. With the money you save on tickets, you can splurge on food, drinks, merch, or even invite a bigger group to come with you because Game Time makes it possible. Game Time makes buying tickets fast and simple. Prices on the app actually drop the closer you get to first pitch. And they've got incredible last minute deals, clear seat views, and a lowest price guarantee that takes the worry out of buying. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Today's episode is also brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are in full swing, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. If you're new to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com, place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Okay, to wrap up the pitching conversation, I want to talk about Grant Holmes because I noticed the continuation tonight of a trend with Grant Holmes. First time through the order, he is very good. I mean, I want to say tonight, he did not give up any hits, and I think he allowed one walk the first time through the order. Second time is where you really started to see Boston figure out what to do off like at the plate against him. I went back and pulled the numbers entering tonight. 121 batting average in the first time through the order. 300 batting average the second. He allowed a homer, a double, 2 walks his second time through. And it all kind of feels like as much as I was worried about him not getting any whiffs on the fastball, it really felt like they were much more disciplined against his slider the second time through the order. And it makes me worry about the decision to keep him in the rotation and send Bryce Elder back to Gwinnett to activate Strider next week.
Yeah, I was a little surprised by that too, because I think at some point you're going to have to limit Grant Holmes' innings. And look, Bryce Elder could come back at some point, and you could still shift Grant.
Can
Holmes.
We add Bryce Harper? Is that an option?
Yeah, I think that's that's what they should probably do.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think Bryce Elder could come back at some point, and you could still shift Grant Holmes to the bullpen, where I think obviously this bullpen could use some help, and I think he'd do some really good things out there. But I thought I was a little surprised at that too, because of the way that Bryce Elder, and really make sure I get that right now going forward. But he had been on a roll and doing some good things. But that said, I thought this was a great start from Grant Holmes, because to your point earlier, I didn't think he had his best stuff, and yet he still was able to go 6 innings and only give up 2 earned runs, and made some really good pitches when he had to. I mean, 13 whiffs. 8 on that slider, 31% CSW. I mean, overall, I thought it was a really good start against a good lineup. And look, he may ultimately be a 5 and dive type of starter against really good lineups just because of that pitch mix, but he did threw the cutter a little bit more today. That was good to see. So again, it's the main thing is that fastball and that slider combination, and it's just can you fool a lineup 2 or 3 times through? And now that there's more tape on him as a starter, our team's going to start to adjust to that.
Yeah, and I do think that we would be remiss if we didn't mention that they got some luck here too on that. He gave up, I want to say it was 7 hard hit balls. Only one of them fell for a hit, and that was the Duran homer. So he did, I want to say 3 of them were over 106. 1 hit off of 7 hard hit balls. So I do think we need to kind of acknowledge he got some of that good luck. When we talk about the Braves hitters having some bad luck at times, we need to acknowledge the opposite side of that as well. Especially the second time through the order. Good point in there in the chat by Tyler. Okay. Offense did some stuff today. Before we get into the offense and what they did, I want to talk about the decision to send Alex Verdugo to the plate on a line drive to left field. He was thrown out easily. And I feel like, I don't know if maybe you made this joke on social media. Somebody did. Matt Tuiasosopo, even Ron Washington thinks that Tui's a little bit aggressive with his sends sometimes. It felt like Verdugo got thrown out easily, and the best move there would have been to just hold him at third base. Why so aggressive in that situation of the game, right? You still have a lead. You've been playing well. Why be so aggressive at sending him and run into an out?
You want to know my biggest frustration with that inning? Eli White leads off the inning with a single and stays on first, and Nick Allen hits into a double play. Where is the small ball aspect in that? Yeah. And that takes a run away too. If whether you have Eli White still or whether you have Nick Allen just lay down a bunt, you have an opportunity there to score on a Verdugo single, assuming everything plays away, or a Matt Olson single. So I had a lot of things wrong with that inning. The send, it's just. Alex Verdugo, maybe he thought Eli White was still on the base. I don't know, but Alex Verdugo, not a very good runner. That ball was destroyed by Matt Olson. He caught it on one hop.
Yeah.
Maybe if that ball takes one more bounce, then maybe, but Duran, who's also fast, able to get there and catch it on one hop. And then I could have made that throw it home to get Verdugo. And you got Marcelo Zuna coming up next. So yeah, just a bad send. But like I said, overall in that inning, there's just a couple of things that I didn't like that would have added another run that obviously would have been huge in the end. And we talk about the pitching, and certainly this is on the bullpen and on the bullpen decisions, but it's also like the game on Wednesday. The offense didn't do anything late to add on to the lead that they had.
Yeah. Shout out to Mike here in the comments on YouTube, also pointing out Verdugo decided to throw home, trying to nab.
Braves a run too.
Yep. Brought a run in, got a runner over to second base. Rafi got to second, and I believe he ended up scoring in that inning.
Yep.
Yeah, he scored on the Bregman double, where you got 2 outs after that. So theoretically, you could have maybe held him at third base, and you would not have been in a tie game in the ninth. So little bit of frustration there too on Verdugo's part, kind of a rough game.
Yeah. And this is a down, maybe not too down the far road conversation, but I think Eli White plays every day when Acuna comes back, in my opinion. But we'll see what happens there.
Yeah. Verdugo's batting, I think, under 150 in the last 15 games. He, ever since that initial hot streak when he came up, he hasn't really been doing much in the field. Now you're seeing defense base running issues. It feels like you definitely could be right. And Eli White could be the guy going forward. Drake Baldwin, another start, another home run. We get back-to-back homers for the second time in the series by the Braves in the first inning. Love seeing Matt Olson swinging a hot stick, Marcell Ozuna swinging a hot stick. But then Drake Baldwin turns around in the third inning and gets himself a home run as well. At this point, I don't know what else I can say about Drake Baldwin. He's batting .354. His OPS is just a couple points shy of 1,000. And I mean, it feels like every time he's in the lineup, he's making a big impact offensively and defensively. He had a great caught stealing late in this game. I've noticed as he's been in the majors, they've I don't know if it's deliberate on his part or if it's just coincidental, but his throws seem to tail more up the first base side of the bag on a stolen base attempt, which means Nick Allen or Ozzie Albies can usually field them and make a tag, and it's quicker than having to wait for the ball to come into the bag. I don't know if that's necessarily a intentional thing or a coincidence of what I've noticed, but he seems to have gotten better at caught stealings ever since that adjustment went into play.
Yeah, and honestly, Shawn Murphy, I've noticed that on the opposite for his throws. A lot of his throws have been tailing to the shortstop side, and Ozzie's been having to reach back and then make the tag. The pop time's still great, but Murphy's throws have been off here lately. So if he can get on board with that like Baldwin is, then you got both of those guys, looking pretty good behind the plate. But you're right, Baldwin, I mean, he's answered every question, and it's still a small sample size, I get, but I mean, he just continues to do it. And who knows if that ball was fair or not, but the only person who really had a good view of it was that umpire who called it fair. So we're going to go with it. And then Baldwin gets pinch hit for in the biggest spot of the game, which, look, lefties are batting .077 against Aroldis Chapman. It's a tough at bat for righties and lefties, so I kind of understand that one. But yeah, Baldwin, I mean, he's been fantastic in the middle of the order. We've been talking about it. The middle of the order needs to get the job done. Riley, a hit and 2 walks. Matt Olson, 3 hits, back-to-back multi-hit games. Ozuna with a home run and 2 walks, and Baldwin with a home run. So middle of the order did it. 13 hits, 5 walks, 8 strikeouts in this one. I mean, it was a good performance by the offense. Like I said, they didn't do enough late to kind of add on. But again, this one's on the bullpen.
Yeah. On the home run there, I had a couple Boston fans reach out to me with, text messages and stuff, guys I'm friends with who all said that was foul. But listen, Tom Hanahan, first base umpire, I've known his name all day, ever since that home run. He's always been my favorite umpire. I'm going to stick with his call and what he says in this one. So, all right, Atlanta Braves get walked off 7-6 by the Boston Red Sox. Series is split 1 game apiece. You are now back to 500, by the way. And this game will decide who ends up at 500, this Sunday finale, because Atlanta's 23-23. Boston is 23-24. So if you win, you are above 500. If they win, they get to 500. It'll be an alliterative matchup, Spencer Schwellenbach versus Brian Bello. Really excited for this one, 1:35 p.m. We will be back here with the postcast after the game. Any final thoughts on this one, Jake? I mean, we've got a little bit longer today because I wanted to make sure, one, we got to some of the great comments here. Thank you guys for being here live on YouTube. And part of it is we had a lot to talk about, but any kind of final thoughts? I didn't give you a chance to get out.
No, I want to flush this one. Hopefully the team does too, and get back at it tomorrow. Hopefully Schwellenbach can give you a solid 6 innings and you got your best relievers rested and ready to go.
Maybe we can get into extra innings so Scott Blewett can get into another game. Maybe that's what's going to happen.
That's what it'll take.
That's what it'll take tomorrow. Do us a favor. If you're listening on audio, leave a 5-star review, Apple, Spotify, YouTube Music. Kind words of affirmation, always great there as well. If you're on YouTube, subscribe to both Locked On Braves and Locked On Sports Atlanta. Hit the notification bell so you know when we go live with the next postcast. Until next time, for Jake Mastroianni, I'm Lindsay Crosby. This has been the Braves Postcast.